educational adequacy update from Kraus Anderson. Hi, John.
How are you? Thank you for having us. We'll do introductions first, so you know who we are. John Hinnick with Kraus Anderson. I'm the director of the K-12. A couple weeks ago, hard to admit, was 31 years for me doing stuff like this. But I must like it because.
And I'm Becky Stump, Director of Project Planning and Development at Kraus Anderson.
I'm Sarah Van Petten, Director of Marketing and Referendum Services.
Okay, so we'll dive right in. If you have a question, because I'll get into some slides that'll, you might say, what's that mean, or, you know, so just back me up and we can talk about it. So this is our agenda. We're going to touch on the facility condition assessment. That's happening as we speak. Hunter's been walking around with another team of ours. I like to joke around and call it the doorknob study. Roofs, boilers, air handlers, sidewalks, turf fields, whatever. They're looking at that and collecting that data and putting it into our portal. A lot is going to be talked about capacity studies tonight. We'll touch on security. We'll talk about next steps and thoughts. We're going to just touch on some communication things on the community outreach. Okay, so I talked about that already. We're in the middle of doing a facility condition assessment. So they're walking buildings and they're putting it into, it's just a Microsoft platform, and building a 10-year facility study. Whether it's something that needs to be done 20 years from now, or it's a roof that needs to be done next year, or parking lot, or whatever. So we're getting to understand your facility needs. We're going to talk about space utilization and program requirements, and your facility and enrollment capacity. You're going to see reports like this at future meetings. They're just kind of snapshots right now. We're looking at interior finishes, equipment, hardware, exterior envelope, mechanical, electrical, safety. I just give you an idea of what they're looking at. Oops, I went over quick. Can I back it up a little, scoot it up? All right. In that report will be an executive report, a digitized site report with photos. So for example, if Hunter wants to look at air handler unit number 2, he can go in, I know, can you read that? No. He can go in, look, and he can hit on a photo, and it'll pop up a photo of that air handler unit where maybe you can see the serial number. So it gives a more tool for Hunter to do facility planning study for a 10-year plan. And it has nothing to do with the future referendum, it's just helping you taking care of your assets. So a lot more to come on facility condition assessments. And then this is an important one. We call it an FCI, which is a Facility Condition Index. And that was created by a group called IFMA, worldwide organization where when you take a look at a building, it gets a score, right? And there's buildings that, so once Travis compiled all his reports with Hunter, and you take all what we call deferred maintenance and divide it by the building cost, you're going to get a percentage. And obviously you want your buildings to be good or excellent, right? That makes sense. And then it's at a point in age where buildings get into poor and critical. And then community and school boards go, do we fix it, do we keep it, or do we get rid of it? So all your buildings will get a score, and then we'll talk about what that score means. There's a lot of districts we work with, and that's okay, they're landing in here, but after a 10-year plan, deferred maintenance plan, and you invest in the roofs, you invest in parking lots, you invest in whatever it is, could be lockers. You know, the idea is to move the needle to yellow or green. But we'll talk more about that in the future meetings. Becky's going to talk about a little more what they're looking at right now.
Yeah, so as Travis has been working through compiling the FCA results and getting some of the graph stuff pulled together, he did summarize just some kind of key highlights that he noticed as he's walking the building. As you see here, the elementary school takes up half the slide, which may not be too much of a surprise to some of you, but just highlighting some items on the exterior, parking lot, the envelope of the building, so some tuck pointing and caulking. Window replacement needs, roof replacement, and then inside the building, the gym floor is in some need of replacement. Some ADA concerns, specifically as bathrooms and ramps and corridors and And then building systems, so you're looking at fire panel replacement, domestic water waste vent replacement, HVAC, some lighting that's aged, and then replacement of the main switchgear, which is the distribution for that electrical. So that's at the elementary school. Looking at the intermediate school, primarily looking at roof replacement, boiler replacement. So in pretty good general condition there. And then looking at the middle school, more roof replacement, looking at the pool and the hot tub. Then some more of those systems, so boiler replacement, switchgear, and generators. So some of those high dollar items. And then at the high school, the parking lot needs some improvements. Tennis court relocation, turf field, and then roof replacement at the auditorium area.
So these items, if I'm pointing at these, this isn't a list that says you're gonna do them tomorrow, right? We'll put them into a 10-year plan, maybe a 20-year plan, and with Hunter's help, it's just, then it's on your list, so you can plan for 5 years from now or 10 years from now, or some of them you'll go, no, we need to take care of this hot tub, this needs to get done and taken care of. So it'll get prioritized and we'll assign it a year, but those are things, just highlighting what landed on the list.
So just kind of steps in this overall process as we're looking, so we're at step 3 that you see here, so we've kind of met with district leaders and decided sort of some of the goals. Then we got out there and did our facility assessment, and so today, now we are presenting just kind of some general information on enrollment. We'll be having meetings with staff next week, and then we'll progress into looking at sort of the financial side of this, coming up with some options, and then going to task force to kind of get some feedback on those options, and ultimately coming together with a final report.
Okay. Enrollment analysis, capacity study, right? So we're not only gonna look at the teacher to student ratios, how much students your building should hold, how are they being used, what spaces are needed, what spaces need to be better, what does capacity look like? Can we improve spaces, spaces that promote curiosity for students that want to learn. In Ladysmith, Wisconsin. We had a task force of students and adults. Students were more fun with, but one of the gals, she was so bright, and we were in a classroom, and we talked about, promoting curiosity, and we were sitting in a room that had ugly VCT flooring and block walls and a warped ceiling. She goes, "Would you want to learn here?" So they noticed, right? We all went to classes like that, but they noticed their environment around them. So where are there opportunities to improve? Even looking at, your career tech opportunities, now it's going to business, right? It's what products do we want to build, how do you design them, how do you market them, how do you business them, and then going into maybe the career tech shop, and what do you do with that? The real world application opportunities, community opportunities, and education today is just different, right? From the technology needs, how to improve your classrooms, team teaching, flexible learning, what opportunities. You see a lot more that students teaching students, right? They relate together a lot. Academic, social needs, and special education needs, of course, that we have to keep in mind. Now the fun stuff. You don't have to read all the numbers now, but I think it'll make sense once I talk about it. So this is a program of classrooms, and it's square foot available versus capacity. So this is your intermediate school, and I've met with your principals on here. And I'm gonna go through the summary on other pages, you may be seen it. So we took a floor plan, identified the rooms, and we labeled every classroom, every special ed room, every administrative area, cafeteria, gym, whatever it is, and we summarized it. So there's a mathematical equation. It's just not sitting with a plan and counting how many rooms there are and how many people we think we can fit in the building. Should you do a true capacity study based on rooms available? So here's the summary. So this is the elementary school. So we looked at the classrooms. There's about 20,600 square feet of classroom space. Special education, there's about 7,200 square foot. So you get it, right? Go down from the media center to athletics to cafeteria. So there's 57,420 square feet of usable space that's inside the walls. Then you add a total gross factor, somewhere around 30–35%. That's your corridors, your thickness of walls, you know that. So the building is about 77,500. I think it's a little more than that, but we're pretty close. So we take that and we take your student-teacher ratio goals and say, if every room was used 100% of the time with 20 or 22 kids in it, whatever it is, the elementary school could hold 440 students. But we know that's not likely, right? Because you have bubble classes, small classes, big classes. So you take a 90% factor. So ideal capacity at the elementary is 396. For me, this helps me. That's about 145 square feet per student. Doing this for a while, I go, yeah, that sounds about right. What you have in that building in red is 155, not including kids club. No, they're taking up a chunk. That's 500 square feet per student, so I'm going, there's some room at the elementary, right? So then we drafted, this is something maybe many of you have seen in the past. There was a demographic study you've done a few years ago by Applied Population Laboratory. So this is what they did on your demographics. So what I said is, okay, currently with pre-K and kindergarten, not kids club, this is where your enrollment's sitting. If it was still a 4K2 building, that's how many students would be in the building. What's telling me the person who did this demographic study did a good job. We're pretty close. Really intermediate school, I won't go through every number again, but I think you understand how it works. So about 88,000 square feet. Full capacity is 298, ideal capacity 358. You have 343 students. So again, let's take that demographic study. If it was still a 3-5 building, you'd be here. You're now using it first and fourth grade since that study. So I'm just trying to compare the two to make it apples to apples on the demographic study. Oh, and here's, I should point out, I should skip over this. Here's that ideal capacity line I talked about. So you can see we're under capacity. Same story at the middle school. Ideal capacity is 454, currently about 400 students. Same thing. Current enrollment to match the study, if it was 6th through 8th grade, is there. You have 5th through 8th grade there now, so you're still under ideal capacity, so there's still some room in the building, but you're about right there with this many grades. And then the high school is a little different because you have electives and a lot more opportunities. Takes a little bit longer to figure out capacity in the high school, but so we list all the rooms, square footages. Ideal capacity is 594, currently at 477. And here again, 9 through 12. So again, whoever did this study is pretty much on the mark on where the trend is. So that's telling us a story, right, as we move into the next steps. So I'm going to stop right there a little bit, and then we'll sum it up. So now we're going to go into the next part of the study, right? On what after the facility condition assessment's done, we're going to analyze what's going on at the elementary school all the way to the high school. We're going to look at capacity. We're going to look at where your enrollment is, and then start looking at ideas and options. But that's going to be part of a community group, and then we'll report back to the school board to come up with, hey, is this a good idea, or is this a good idea, or is this a good idea? So, we did something similar up in Grantsburg. One of you remembers they had that small pre-K building out in the country there, did the same type of thing. I hope we don't get to hear, I think we had like 12 options. We had to narrow it down to one, but we got there. And they moved them all into one campus. just touching security, credit to administration team and school board decisions. Your buildings are in pretty good shape for front door security. It's standard, okay? There's certainly some other things that we can talk about with window protection. There's I call it, there's more than 3M, but there's a 3M film that's pretty good stuff that you put on the window and you caulk it in, and if any of us hit it with a bat, it would hurt. Can you break it? Sure, but it takes quite a while. You have the door lockdowns in place. There's some camera opportunities and improvements. There's some traffic control considerations, especially maybe at the intermediate school. You know, and there's some talk of potential security grants. Carl? So we're gonna wrap this up.
Yeah, as we kind of take this information and we decide how we want to move forward from it, how do we want to move forward? And frequently, we see creating a community task force and bringing everyone together and sharing this information with them, whether that's touring comparable districts, talking through all the information we're talking with you tonight and digging a little bit deeper in that, sharing the information we find in the FCA, and being able to kind of move forward with them along with the school board to figure out the best decision for all of you. So, taking into account, what does capacity look like? What are our capacity needs? And kind of help develop those ideas and move forward with that community engagement, and moving forward in future board workshops to make sure there's buy-in from the community, but also the board, so you feel like you're making the best decision for the district moving forward, and feel like you have that community support with that final decision.
So, again, here's this, I put in just this 4 years, what does capacity look like? We might not know how many, little kiddos are gonna be born exactly, but if you march that 4 years down the calendar, kindergarten goes to 4th grade, and 4th goes to 8th and 12th, it'd be interesting how that charts out. So you saw the demographic study there, so we're in the process of working on that right now. So even the capacity numbers I showed you, in 4 years look different because of your trends. But we'll get into that and then come up with some numbers. Any questions? I told Hunter 20 minutes and we're 19, so. Too fast, too slow, any questions, or?
Do you have thoughts about ideas that you want brought forward, or anything that's rumbling around in your mind that would be helpful? The team is all here.
We are presenting to staff next week, same thing. So if you're thinking of coming, you don't have to, because you've seen it already. So just very high level, and then we'll start putting ideas, and there'll be many more presentations on things developed. Where's Mud?
No, I think we all know we're gonna have to do something, so,
Sure.
Use the eyes, tell us, figure out where we get, where we can be, but as far as what we need to move forward.
Right.
We're not filling the elementary school, but we're doing that with some purpose, and seeing those numbers plotted out tells us that we made a good decision. In the last couple of years for moving grades, but I think it was the middle school one has a capacity of 50, well, they're having classes of 50, so
Sure.
we're filling out where we can, we're gonna have to do something.
Yeah. This was, the reason I like this, it's a little different look at capacity on an Excel spreadsheet, it's still counting classrooms, but then it's a good way to put your student ratio goals in there, and then a lot of rooms are being used for special ed and other things, so it's a good, different way to look at capacity. And then we can roll in the facility condition assessment, that's also gonna help you make decisions. But then when you do go to a community outreach, you've got some really good facts, and then make some decisions on what those options are. Otherwise, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
you bet.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Didn't break it.
All right, next we'll move on to our administrative report, and we'll start with you, Better.
Okay. I'm sure you guys can hear me just fine, so I'm just gonna stay right here, right? Okay. So the February newsletter is in there for you. This week we are doing our flexible parent connections, and what that means is that all teachers are reaching out to families, whether it's inviting families in, sending a message through either email or Seesaw. Some are even doing some different Zoom or Google Meets, and just really making sure that we're connecting and showing, you know, everything that we can with the parent to school connections there. So, doing that this week, teachers have Monday through Friday to complete all of that. Going into next week, we are going to be celebrating as a 4K4 schools our Wellness Week at 2026. And so our Wellness Week this year, the theme is going to be around Monsters University, and it's all about teamwork and friendship. So bringing students together for that will be a lot of fun. So looking at how we're going to do some different things and grouping grade levels together and having some friendly competitions and assemblies and all the things that go with that fun week ahead. With that, we also have this will be our third wellness night, our third annual wellness night. We're hosting that at the intermediate school. So that will be next Wednesday, and that's from 4 to 6. So again, bringing in community members, they each can set up different booths or tables, and we have different resources for families, and we'll have a jumpy house in the gym. We're bringing over some high school athletes to talk with kids, and just lots of different fun activities. So it's 2 hours of opening up the building and allowing everybody in to have some fun. With that, also in February, I did forget to put this on there, but it is our 4K and K concert. So that will be the week then after our Wellness Week. But I'll make sure and get all that out there on the website. 4K Roundup is March 20th, and we have already opened up our 4K enrollment. So that opened up about 2 weeks ago. So we're starting to get families to enroll already for the 26-27 school year. And then from there, they sign up for a time for our 4K Roundup, and they'll come in and they get to tour the building. I do a little presentation. They'll get to meet with the teachers. They bring their students or their kids with, and they go through little stations with the teachers as well. And it's really just bringing in those 3-year-olds that will be turning 4 before September 1st. So that's coming up. Huge thank you to our school counselors, both Jessica Carey and Carly Pitt, for everything that they do. Shout out to them. Last week was our National Celebrate Our School Counselors Week. They do so much for kids, and the support that they have and care for kids is truly amazing. And then lastly, Darren and I have been working on summer school stuff for this year, and right now we're out there trying to get staff signed up to teach, and we will be having 4K and K at the elementary school, 1st through 4th graders at the intermediate school, and then our 5th through 8th grade at the middle school. I didn't add anything on there about the high school because I'm not quite sure how they do that, so there's that for you guys to talk about when it's your turn. And that is all I have for you.
Good evening, everyone. So you can see we've got our February newsletter for you to take a glance at that went out at the beginning of February to our middle school families. Our Pride update, as of 2/6, we had 1,000 Pride awards and 173 staff and thanks to electronics. Our ratio is 5.78 to 1. Our goal was to beat what we did last year and continue to build on those positive messages. Last year we were at 3.9 to 1. So positive, like I've mentioned before, sometimes after spring break when we return, that decreases a little bit. We celebrate our students of the quarter for second quarter. They get an opportunity to come up to the office, and we announce them along with our other weekly Pride Award winners, and then get a gift card. So that's a way to honor them, and then I reach out to the families also. Just some happenings. Battle of the Books is occurring. We have solo ensemble and spelling bees, so some friendly competitions taking place. Lots of field trips. You can see the list of those all the way through 8th grade that are happening this month. Our 7th grade did a cyber safety presentation today that was just excellent. We invited Matt O'Hara, who is a sheriff in Washington County, who lives in the district, to do that, and he just pointed out a lot of wonderful things for our kids as far as being careful and being safe with their online tools that they're using. So that was wonderful. We also celebrate National School Counseling Week. Shout out to our counselors, Lisa and Kristen, and Nikhil Gillis, who is our long-term sub. We are going to do Wellness Week, March 2nd through 6th. So Renee Sabowski can heads that up with our student council and planning that whole week out. Also we have, so this is our first ever Chieftain Showcase of Excellence. And one of the things I wanted to do is just get get an opportunity for community to come in and celebrate some of the wonderful things our kids are doing. I think it's a way to build trust. It's also a way to get some of those parents that may not always want to come and talk about their kid at conferences. And it's just gonna be a fun night. It's March 2nd. It's 4 to 5:30. And a big shout out to Kristen Boyle, who is my designer here. But some of the fun things that are listed for parents to come in and do with their kids, they can play badminton or butt volleyball in the gym. And that's always a fun activity. We've done butt volleyball with our staff. There's lots of laughs when that happens. Learn to play your child's instrument in the band room, drum circles in the choir room. They'll have concert recordings playing with band and choir. Learn about Wellness Wednesday and sample snacks in the health room. Check out our work around the building. PTA also generously is donating money to pay for free hot dogs and cookies for the event. And then we kind of have some of the showcases that are happening by various grade levels down at the bottom. But our hope is get a bunch of parents through and kids and just have a fun night celebrating some of the wonderful things they're doing and they're learning. That's all I got. Board, you're invited to come too. We'd love to have you come through, whether you have a student in the building or not.
Here.
I would say that looks like a lot of fun.
All right, Amanda Meyer.
Okay, so I linked in our February newsletter for you. I don't have much to share out tonight, but we are planning our February 16th Professional Development Day. District-wide, we have an AI training. It's part 2 of our AI training and how to use AI, how we can use it as staff members, but how also to help us educate students on AI. So we have 4 different sessions that staff will go to 2 of. We have 2 ChatGPT, like a basic level and a next level. Notebook and Gemini are the 4 sessions that we'll have, so we're just working on finishing that up right now. Next week is our Flexible Parent Connections Week, so that's happening next week too. And then, the following week, we have, scheduling's already starting here pretty soon for high school, so we have February 25th, 2 different sessions, one for our incoming 8th graders, or 8th graders will be 9th graders, so they'll be in the building for the first time, getting some information about classes and extracurriculars and all the high school stuff. And then we'll have an informational session for our current 9th through 11th graders as they start academic career planning and planning out their schedule for next year as well. And just a shout out to Miss Hanky and Miss Britton for all of the behind the scenes work that they do, especially as we head into scheduling season. There's a lot that they're working on all the time.
Awesome. Questions for Amanda? Scanlon?
Okay, today we held our Winter Fun Day activities. We had 60 activities in which the students could choose from, and they ranged from ice fishing. We took a group of kids, 130 so, to Mall of America, Sky Zone, Top Golf, trail hogging, and ice fishing, bowling and moving. And our goal of this is, one, to provide opportunities for students and staff to be engaged in something outside the classroom. Hopefully, do something fun, and get outside the building, let loose, go from there. And also for some kids to experience some activities that maybe they would not have the opportunity to explore. And I can tell you, like, the kids are going back in the building today, out the buses, and of course, they're not in the classroom, so they're not gonna have a good day. But just for the thought of kids that go to the Mall of America, for kids to go to Top Golf, or some of those activities, that they had a fun day. And so it's, believe it or not, here, 3 weeks track starts. Which means that now we're entering the AA tournament season for our winter sports season. So girls hockey for us is actually on February 16th. Wrestling is this weekend. We have sectionals ready this weekend in Chautauqua. Girls basketball is on February 23rd. Boys basketball on March 2nd. And those are the sports. Powerlifting is right now is just finished their last meet. They have state coming in a few weeks as well. Also one thing too, to go back to Winter Fun Day. Ryan Save and Anna Marie Campo led the way. They helped organize all the events with the kids and staff. So with Oscar did an exceptional job with all of that. And the last thing we have for this tomorrow, we have our speaker coming in, and his name is Hunter Gillette. I believe that's how you say it. And he's actually a high school friend of Ryan Save. And I just like to give you a little background on his experience that the kids are going to hear about tomorrow. tomorrow from Ryan, or from Hunter's experience he had as a senior in high school. this is from Mr. Sade, so bear with me. The day before his sectional track meet, where Hunter was actually seated first at sections at Wood State, he went up into the plane with another student from another school that has a pilot license. The plane stalled and crashed into the Red Cedar River. His impact was so hard when they hit the water, it snapped the seatbelt off, and his face indented into the dashboard of the plane. The other person was trapped in the plane, and as a result, went down the plane in the river and drowned. Hunter crawled across the river with a broken back, skull, and a host of broken other bones and concerns. Could hardly walk after months in Mayo, then with his path back over the next 5 years, and eventually going from almost completely handicapped to fully functional through a lot of different physical therapy and lifting. Major themes of what he's gonna provide to the kids is how he deals with the trauma and resilience that he has shown over the last couple of years. He also works as a physical therapy with kids that have gone through trauma with using physical strength training as a form of therapy for them to work through their physical concerns. So, should be a very interesting speaker for the kids tomorrow.
Awesome. Questions for Scott? All right, Shannon or Dell?
Just two things, Renee. The Board of Education had asked that independent consultative team to provide a review of the processes and procedures for the 2023 matter. We have engaged with Board Clark to conduct that review. This is after considering 6 other firms and a review process that was done. So the engagement letter is linked in there for the board to review. And then just the ongoing work that we have with the 2026-27 budget.
Awesome. Questions for Shannon? Dr. Stiles?
Don't worry, I have lots, so if you're worried about not having content, we have content tonight. First, grant update, 2 pieces. One is Act 20 Literacy Grant, which came out of funding from the state that was just released, and Patricia and Julie created a grant, so that would actually bring a coach into our district that would work with staff to help them with the early literacy skills. There's only so many that go around the state, but we have our application in and are hopeful that whether it's half-time or full-time, perhaps we can get something in that pot. And the second one, Hunter and Arlene worked together on, and it's the Wisconsin School Violence Prevention Grant. And we looked at, you can look at there, but we looked at the idea of having camera systems, door systems, and our security systems all working hand in hand. And that came to $727,000. So if we even get part of that, we're gonna be in good shape, but I thought it was great that they were able to put that together. And again, it came out multiple places, and it sounds like there's like $10 million, so who knows if Osceola will get a chunk, but at least we keep trying to reach out for some dollars. Second is the webpage update. As you know, we talked about having a place in the district in response to some social media discussions, that we could have a place in the district where people could go to get accurate information. And also being very sensitive and understanding that the accurate information also involves a school district family, so we want to be very sensitive about how it's labeled and where it's at. So you go to updates and information off the district page, and then updates and resources, and if you can click on the January 26th down there, just is gonna have the communications from the district, and then questions as they come up. So like last week, I was asked 3 different questions, so those are on there. So if people wanna go and get information, it's there and available for them. And any suggestions at any point that any of you have of what should be there, I would appreciate knowing that. Any questions on that? All right, and then so as part of our regular governance, we talk about enrollment. And good news was that CISA is seeing this across the state, so they are presenting actually declining enrollment workshops. So for your entertainment, I will walk you through some slides on enrollment. All right, and this is a normal February piece we do, but before we get started, I think it's important to also recognize the Olympics are happening. And what makes the Olympics really exciting for us is we actually have an alumni there who's commentating on the Olympics. So Alicia Lewis, one of our grads, is there. And I don't know if you've seen her on the news, but, it's really cool to be able to turn on the news and see her talking about it. I was telling Corey that I would just like one of her outfits because she has a lot of USA gear. So thinking if she could bring some back, that would be great. And Corey, you've had an opportunity to work with her, right?
Yeah, when I co-MC with her at the Valley Brew Fest downtown, we've done it several years together, and we raise money for our lovely community for our bike trails and walking trails. So it has been fun being able to talk to her before she left, and then now seeing her on TV. I know she's thinking about me, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it's been great.
Okay. It's amazing what our alum do, and that was just seeing her talk about the Olympics, which I happen to love, is pretty exciting. You know, I often start out with this, it's a good reminder to remember who we are as a district, 125 square miles. We have 1,370 students, just about 200 staff. We represent 2 states and 8 municipalities. It's a lot. In our strategic plan, I hope that you heard repeatedly through the admin reports the connection to the community and engagement. Like we're doing the work that we said we were going to do, so I think that's really important. And also our pillars to excellence. That's who we are. This is the work that we focus on in order to do great things for kids. So I'm gonna start, like I usually do, with the state perspective, what's happening in Wisconsin. And good news, for those of you who've seen this presentation before, there's some new slides based on the new content. So Sarah Kemp, who actually did our applied population study that Kraus talked about, was at CISA with us. So I got to connect with her again. But the population, so this is Wisconsin, 1970 to 2020. So the population's greatest increase, you can see, was from the 90s to 2000. And the least was from 2010 to 20. So again, those percentages, you can see we're increasing, but how much are we increasing? This is the big aha moment. Again, a new slide. The youth population increased by about 6% in the 90s, but it's now decreasing. So I have one more slide for you to take a look at. So 0 to 17, right? 90, 2000, 2010, 2020. So here's the youth population itself. So the 0 to 17-year-olds. So this is the big slide that says, oh my gosh, there are less kids. There are just less kids that come into districts in Wisconsin. This is the graphic, and Sarah, who was there, was a little disappointed because her slides were actually in a PDF, so the graphic wouldn't work, and she was a little bit upset about it. So ours is working, and essentially what it's showing is that in the 60s and the 70s, our population was much younger, because you look across the top and you see the year, and across the bottom. So by 2040, she talked about it used to be a pyramid, and then it's gonna be a square. And again, how does population growth happen in Wisconsin? So again, it's slowing because of declining birth rates and fewer people moving into Wisconsin. So right, population change is births and immigration, and minus deaths and emigration. It's not a word I usually talk about much, but you look at the 2010. Huge change. The natural increase, right, green, births, and migration, people coming to live in Wisconsin, significantly less. Since 2007, there's been an 18% decline. So these are all slides that are new that you haven't seen before, of births in 18 years. So I think it's great. See the circle, 2007? That's when most of the students who are graduating this year were born, and that was our highest spot. So what that tells us, right, is naturally there's going to be declining enrollment. The other piece, and this is a slide right again, since 2007, births have decreased while deaths have increased. So you can see how many more births than deaths we had when you look back 2007, 8, and you can see where they converged during the pandemic, and you can see how they're staying. So again, just a very different look, and it's not that much time from 2007 to 2023. So So now we're gonna go closer to school, so school types, right? Because we all know that Wisconsin has one of the biggest school choice programs in the country. But where are students going as well? So students that homeschool, and this is from 1920 to 24-25, you can see there's a 44% increase. Now again, they were a small number to begin with, so when you say 44% increase, not as many students, right? Private schools have had an increase of 5%, and public schools has decreased by 6%. But still, over 80% of our students are public school students, and I think that's important to see. Again, Wisconsin public schools, so this is just looking at the public schools, the decline from 14-15, and then it goes to 19-20, and then from 19-20 to 24-25. And this is the chart, again, try to have interactive pieces, so the more purple, so if you look at the top, it's school year 2008-9, and it's changed to 9-10, 10-11, the more purple you get, the more districts that are within declining enrollment, and it goes through 23-24. So now we're at 16-17. A lot of green turns to purple by the time you get to 23. And then also important to show where are the students in school, right? So we have 4 different delineations in our state, suburban, town, and rural. So we have about 59% of our students in 22% of the schools. So that's just an interesting split when you think about where are all of the students and how does this work here. So here's the last 5 years of declining enrollment by town and rural, they put together in city and suburban. What's one thing you notice? This is the involvement part. City has the largest decrease. Everybody's decreasing. And then, again, Wisconsin, I just did this one. Double down on the same information, sorry about that. And then here's the projection moving forward. So, looks that, will decline elementary by 9%, middle school by 2%, and high school by 6%. So by 29-30, projected to decrease another 6% as a state. Just thinking about demographics of Wisconsin schools, again, this is important. You look at what the demographic breakdown are, and the English language learners, students with disabilities, and students experiencing poverty, right? This is the makeup of public schools in 24-25. And looking at students with disabilities, because I know we've talked about that, the funding gap, right? That we don't get full funding for students that we need and want to educate in the best way possible. And you can see this is the first slide that I've shown you that shows an increase in anything. So even though we're having less students, we're gonna have students with higher needs. And then also, this is the same projection out to 2030, and again, it continues to rise. So in 5 years, students with disabilities will increase from 15 to 17%. So concluding comments, these are actually the summary from Sarah, but decreasing births and slowing migration, right? Declining enrollment. We saw that, we know that. It's not us, it's the state of Wisconsin. Educational alternatives grew during the pandemic. That's not surprising to us. There's no area in the state that's immune to declining enrollment. Fewer students mean reduced revenue, because we know in our state, right, it's tied directly to students. And it's gonna result in needing to reduce costs or asking your taxpayers to pay more. And there is a growing number of economically disadvantaged students, a growing number of special ed students, and a growing number of English language learners, all of which need some specialized services in order to get to where they need to be in a public setting. they did not talk about a level out. Do you feel like we heard about a level out? No. Great question. So now we're gonna talk about here, us. What does it mean for our school district? Where have we been, where are we going? So here's our district over time, right? I started in 13, 14, and 25, 26. So 399 students less from 13, 14, so in the last 12 years. So a lot of us have been around the table during this time, and you didn't ever feel like it was a punch in the face. It's just been this slow decline over time. So then you wanna look at the life cycle of Tristan's class, right? So this is the class of 2026. So in 13, 14, they were 136 students in kindergarten. And they're graduating 137. So when you look, the variation, you can see where it changed. And Tristan can probably tell you who moved and who didn't, because he moved in at one of those grade levels, right? I mean, you were a move-in. So we have, right, mobility, but the overall end game is very, very close. And I think it's actually 136 now, because I think we had one of our exchange students move out. But again, the life cycle, and then I also looked at 2 other grade levels to see the variable, and it was about 10. Just to make sure it was statistically sound, you have to look at 3 different pieces. So this grade was a variation of 1. So then how are we compared to other districts? Again, the 25, 26 final counts are, remember this January count just coming out. So this is where we were at. So this is through 24, 25. Altoona is in an interesting space. If you know anybody in Altoona, they are actually closing down their open enrollment in order to be able to right-size their district and actually be a smaller district so they can get their arms around their district, which seems the opposite of what many of us have talked about when we talk about open enrollment. You look at Amory, Baldwin, Ellsworth, Osceola, Prescott, Somerset, and then the old St. Croix Central, which you always have the asterisk, right? They have that virtual school that they run there. So then going just a little bit wider, right, because we like to compare ourselves middle border, but then also looking at other local districts. You look at Frederick with 440 going to 406. Then you look at a Hudson losing almost 500 kiddos. River Falls, St. Croix Falls, Unity, and then look at the state, 49,058 less students. So I showed this at the annual meeting, but I think it's worth showing again. So the formula for state aid, right? So here's our estimated pupil count last January. So the team and I sat down and we went through all the numbers, and this was the last January. And then now, this is the September. It says not official, but it actually is the actual official number. And it shows that we increased by 13 students. So in January, we thought we were gonna be about 1364, but we ended up starting the year at 1377. So in your heart and soul, you'd be like, oh, we increased by 13 kids. We are not declining. That is not actually, in fact, true, but we will get there in line. So this would indicate that, right, that we're not declining. However, we are not tricky with numbers here. We are honest and open and real. And there's something I've coveted, the graduation effect, because it has impacted Osceola for years now. So we have 137 students graduate. We have 71 students in kindergarten. We are now negative 66 students. Has this been something that Osceola has dealt with for a period of time, you may ask? And the answer is yes, because if you look back at 13, 14, you can see grade 12 was 145 students, and that kindergarten class, so Tristan's class, started at 136. That was then in kindergarten. But if you look, since 13, 14, we have had bigger grade 12s than we have kindergarten classes. Graduation effect. So now we'll look at our pupil count. So you will see this also on the agenda. This is where we ended in January. So we're at 1370. And just for historical pieces, I like history and social studies. Our largest was in 2009-10. We were 1,893 students. So we talk about the simple math. of enrollment. So if you look at 2021, again, this is second Friday, January pupil counts. If you say that we look at 1533 from 2021, and we go to this year, 1370, it's about 163 students, it's $1.8 million in deficit. And then you may wonder, like, what's the difference from the start of the year to now? We had 13 entries and 21 withdrawals since the school year started. And we track who leaves and where they go, and actually under that black box is the literal information, but as we were looking through it, it's really obvious who families are when one person goes or two people go, so trying to make it non-identifiable felt better to just have that box there. So we do track who went to homeschool, who just moved, whose parents withdrew, like all of the things are by every single entry and withdrawal, where they moved from, and where they moved to. So we are at a difference of 8, which is actually pretty typical in January count. So you may have questions about homeschool. Here's where we've been since 15, 16, 25, 26. I'm not sure why I went back to 15, 16, I think it just fit on this slide. So you can see we have a few less families this year and a few less students than we did the year before. Open enrollment, we are still more students in than students out, but not nearly as significant as we have been in the past. And then for voucher schools, we've been pretty consistent since the program came into play. One year it went down. Any questions on any of that? So the year-to-year shift, so this is what we're talking about for this year when we look at it. So our head count projected for next year, right? So this is just us as a team. We sit together and we take the current enrollment and then we move it forward a year. We hold 80 as the estimate, so those red boxes are intended to be the estimates of early childhood and what pre-K we hope is, right? And then we look at what's the difference across. And the intent of this is to show you where do you make reductions based on numbers? Where do you see a significant number that would be enough to reduce a staff number? And that's where it gets super tricky, right? 'Cause it's not, and what we do as a team is we look at section sizes. But it's super important to note that when you reduce a section and then you need it back the next year, that's not always a great thing for a teacher or for staff. So we try to be very, very sensitive and very, I would say, supportive and also responsible in how we make decisions. And operational costs continue to rise. Because you have less students and less funding, we still have 4 buildings plus a bus garage that we're paying all the bills for and doing the stuff for. And that's our therapy dog, because this is the slide you're supposed to smile at, because when the dog comes in, the students all smile. Are you sad that it doesn't come to your school? Yes. And again, there's the 58 students times 11,650 per student, $675,700 automatically. I mean, again, that's simple math, there's all the other pieces that go into that, but that's what's happening in our district. So enrollment in the future, we talked about that applied population study. Now again, remember it was done in 22, but they look at local birth rates, they look at the housing trends, and they look at over the next 5 years. And our enrollment, they said, would decline from 91 to 278 students. And they have been pretty much spot on, and you saw that when John presented to you as far as presentation. So what have we done to adjust? We've all sat at the table when we've made these really hard conversations. We've reduced staff because we need to try to balance the budget as closely as we can, and because a big chunk of it is right sizing, right? As we have less students, that's what we need to do. So those are the reductions from the last 2 years. Always important to say, right? The workload increased for many, but there isn't less work. There's just less people. So summary, there's a declining birth rate. We have bigger graduating classes than elementary. And this is gonna happen for a while. Like Like, when you look at our numbers and you say, when is this gonna actually even out? I think we have another 8 years before we can actually say it's gonna even out. Manage the budget itself is tricky, when there isn't a huge move out at a particular grade, or there isn't a specific class that's smaller, or you know next year, you're gonna have another one come in. The other part is if you have a kindergarten group and you're like, okay, we're gonna go down to 4 sections, and then 6 kindergartners move in, then are you hiring a teacher, like, right? So you just have to be very, very cognizant of how you make decisions to best serve students in learning. There are lots of unfunded requirements that require staff, materials, and space. I know you all know about Act 20 and how that is happening. And we have students with more needs, which require more resources, people, and space. And we just saw that students with special needs are going to increase over time, so that we're not looking to go down. And that enrollment is a pivotal factor in our budget. It's not all of our budget, but it's a very, very huge driving force. And we have, enrollment spelled wrong. We have responded to declining enrollment and have made reductions and reconfigurations. I mean, I hope you all celebrated a little bit when you saw what John showed on those slides, that we are keeping our buildings at capacity or close to capacity, just by shifting things around. Is it comfortable for everybody? No. And do we still have a very large elementary school sitting down there with only 168 students? Yes. So we have work to do at this table for sure. And we're gonna continue to evaluate and plan. This is the time of the year that, leadership meetings are challenging, because we're talking about, we gotta look at everything. Where are we at? How do we do this? How can we make things happen? Do we contemplate, like last year, we decided to not have one-to-one iPads in certain places. Now there's only, right? And we also look at that as a healthy thing for kids. They have enough screen time, so let's do that. But also, you can't say, let's get rid of all of the computers, because guess how state testing takes place on a computer? So, just trying to really be conscientious. And, you know, this is why we're here. These are them. These are all the kids that show up every day and want us to do the best work we can for them. What questions do you have about enrollment?
So the declining enrollment isn't just affecting Wisconsin, it's a national thing.
Correct.
So, and I think we just have to realize that. But the other thing is, when they were saying that the special ed will be going up, did they do like that on a 5-year average, or how did they come, or why did they assume that with declining enrollment, our special ed students will increase?
She didn't give me the super cool fun formula, but what she talked about is the increase that they see annually every year of students with needs. It's going up in spite of the declining enrollment. So it's staying steady, for example, because I asked her that actually, in spirits, on the side, and she was like, it's staying at 15% in the state, so how come it's not declining? Because more students are needing.
As a special ed teacher in a different district, my caseload grows every year. Every year, there's more special ed students.
Because they're identifying them more, or?
There's more.
Or what's causing it?
Well, there's just more parents advocating for it's because people are just more aware. Like teachers, I would say too, like when there are college students in classes, you know, they're being taught that too, like you gotta be looking for this in students. So it's being taught to students more in college, like be on the lookout for this. You should be noticing if a kid or a student struggles with this, advocate for that student. So it's everyone being on the lookout more for younger ages to advocate for students, and then being aware of that, and then saying, hey, we should really observe this student or test that student to see if they qualify for that. So there's a lot of factors of why. It's just doing a better job of fighting for the best learning environment for that student. And again, also parents too, like if a student's struggling, saying, hey, I think my student, they're really struggling, and I think we had him tested for ADHD, so I think maybe he qualifies for OHI or something. So lots of different factors.
I would say that too, and Jan, the other expense that goes with that is like, right, as a school district, we know when students are in need, so we have interventionists that try to put all these
Right.
plans in place to try to keep students out of special ed, which is an increased cost in the district, in order to try to ensure that doesn't happen. So, and there, I don't have it, maybe we could ask Ruth to do a presentation sometime on the increase in the different categories across, cause I know I saw something recently that showed different students, like, autism wasn't a thing back 20 years ago.
Right.
And now it's a thing. Ruth is giving me a head nod, thanks Ruth. So, that's a great question.
Well, and, way they identify is different than what they did even 25 years ago or 10 years. You
Yeah,
know, they
when
have
it made the
changed,
shift, yeah.
labels on how kids are identified.
Well, and they have to go through an intervention
Right.
process, you can't just say test this kid.
No, I understand that, and rightfully they should, get the best education they can, so.
And we also learned even EL population, which isn't something that's hit hard in Osceola, like, they fund, it's only funded in like 67 schools across the state of Wisconsin. So any kind of services to support EL learners is the district funding without additional dollars.
As far as it flattening the decline, it doesn't really flatten, like, I thought a couple months ago that it was gonna hit like a 90 average or 87 average. It just continues, I don't know what's like.
I know which one you're talking about, this one.
Well, like, it doesn't even, like 70 next year, I thought that once we hit 100, it
Right.
would kind of flatten out a little bit.
Right.
You know, the 136 is going away and the 120 is
It's
going
probably
away.
not until the fourth graders get here,
Where it's 85 then, or
but
80?
we don't know.
Yeah.
We just keep saying it's gonna be 80, I think Julie and I use 80 as a mark every
Yeah.
year, because that's what it has been, but that is
There's
not.
no like 5-year kind of flat or 4-year, like, so we could project at least in 3 years it'll stop and kind of level at 5 years, which is.
And it was interesting, sitting in the room, we had Baldwin there, we had Ellsworth there, Somerset was there, I mean, we had lots of our neighbors that we sit and have conversations about, and like Baldwin in particular, is like, our high school's full now, but when we look 6 out, it's not gonna be.
So I have a question on this, too, guys, so I actually didn't want to interrupt you, but since that's why, the positive 25 and 4, is that just that big of a class, or?
Yes. Okay, it's just a different, and this is also the bubble group from the pandemic hit, where parents didn't send kids. And if you'll remember, this group right here, that's going, that went from, we had projected, we also had 4K parents, 9 parents kept students in 4K for 2 years. Right, so, yeah, so that group is just a bubble group, which again, when you talk about staffing, that's really hard. Because now you're like, okay, you're a third grade teacher, this next year you're a fourth grade teacher, now you're back to a third grade teacher.
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No, that's fine. Just national population trend or state population trend. We're having 1 and 2 kids after 30 years old, and not enough people moving in.
I have a question about, L2 then, it says that they're looking at not having, what does that mean? Like, how has a public school community, we're not gonna take students?
You say how many seats?
In January.
Just for open enrollment,
Yeah.
but like if they have move-ins to their district, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
So
I was
they-
thinking like they were saying, no
general.
more students, and I'm like, how could
The
you do
board
that?
is saying we need to fund our residents and can have smaller buildings and less staff with resident students and not. So that was their move last year. I don't know what they set for this year.
Not students.
Yeah, I pictured like, oh, the more students. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that it for your admin?
That is it.
Okay. All right, that takes us to item 3, which is, finance and operations and the self-insurance update.
This would be the time of year where we would bring forward recommendations for next year, or we are in the second year of the health partner, so that means that, doing it today is that we will be looking, at getting some quotes from other companies, just to make sure that we're, maintaining a good rate. So we're about a month out on this, so this will come back to court.
Item D, which is first reading of policies 2131.01, 2261.01, 6152.01, and 7455.
So when you look through, the reading instructional goals and, parent engagement, both of those, have come across in the recent history. There's just some updates that are required because of Title I or, because of Act 20. And then the waiver of school fees. It looks exactly like what it did